general trend is one of gloom and doom. If you think about it, we have a bankrupt government which is being forced by its creditors, its international creditors, to pretend that it's not bankrupt and to set fiscal targets that are impossible to meet. And you have the absurd situation where companies have to pay a year in advance their estimated tax in full, 100% of it, in an environment of low demand and no credit. When a few hundred miles north of Athens in Bulgaria, the tax rate is 1/3 and companies do not have to labor under those absurd circumstances.
So you're actually saying that the government is making the situation worse for the average business owner, the average man or woman in the street?
The government doesn't want to do this, but it is imposed upon it by the deal that it was forced to sign in August 2015. We have to reach a fiscal target of 3.5% of primary surplus, which is impossible to do in a broken economy without keeping ratcheting up the corporate tax rates.
Well, what essentially the international community asked Greece to do, and surely it's not unreasonable, is that Greece could spend only a little bit more than it's collecting in taxation. Why is that a problem?
Well, that was what I was proposing to the creditors, and they rejected it. What I was proposing was that Greece should never go into a deficit again, that we should have a small primary surplus of 1.5% of GDP, which is manageable.
But 3.5% isn't that much more than 1.5%, is it?
It is hugely larger. It is utterly unfathomable, and you don't have to take my word for this. The International Monetary Fund agrees entirely with me. Now that I'm out of government, the IMF has come out repeating what I was saying when I was in government, that anything beyond 1 or 1.5% is beyond the pale. Remember, no government has managed to maintain in perpetuity, almost 10 years at least, a primary surplus of 3.5%, especially at the time of a debt deflationary spiral.
The alternative, of course, would have been, and a lot of Greek people wanted you to do this, would have just been to say to all the people who've lent money to Greece in the past, hang the lot of you, we're not paying. We're going to default on the whole lot and we're going to start again. Why didn't you do that?
Can I possibly remind you that I was the finance minister and not the prime minister? That was my recommendation to the prime minister. On the night of the referendum, when the Greek people, as you mentioned, gave us a 62% mandate, a remarkable mandate, to do precisely as you say, the prime minister in his office said to me, it is time to surrender. And I tried to dissuade him. I spent 3 hours, more or less, trying to dissuade him. I failed, and then I submitted my resignation.
If President Obama is listening to this interview, what's your message to him? What's the one thing he could do that would help Greece out of its hole?
Oh, precisely nothing. I had a discussion with President Obama in April of 2015 when I was a minister in the White House. We agreed entirely. He used rather unpresidential language by which to describe austerity and the policies that were imposed on the Greek state. But as I mentioned to him in the White House, his Treasury Department was not towing the Obama line. And it continued not to. In the end, we did not get any help in our negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, with Brussels and with Berlin and Frankfurt from the American side. That was a time when President Obama could have backed his words with actions to support a Greek deal that would make sense for Greece and for Europe, and indeed for America. He didn't. This trip now, I'm sure, is a very pleasant one, but it is utterly irrelevant.